Hello, people. I just had a small revelation I wanted to share with you today. I have school time lessons with Liam right now, and he's in Spanish. Whenever his lessons are in Spanish, that means he just drifts off. I don't know what world he goes to, but he goes, right? So I don't know, I was just observing him, and then I see him look up and he's gone, and then he tells me something that is not related to what he's doing. And I said, okay, Liam. I said, look, right now you're letting your mind go. You are not in the lesson. You're not paying attention to what the lesson is about. It gets me to thinking, how many of us have done that, where we allow our mind to take us somewhere else except in that moment where our lesson is. It's very easy to distract yourself and go into your mind and disappear or create alternative routes, except to go through that lesson. I'm guilty. I am so guilty of that. When I get these aha moments, it just like your life flashes before your eyes and you kind of see, oh yes, that moment, oh that moment, this moment. And that's what it really is about. A lot of times we just don't want to go through the lesson because it's very hard. And it could be that at that moment, you just do not understand that your higher source, your God, your universe is trying to teach you a lesson. Because in learning and grasping that knowledge is growth. Grasping your knowledge is growth. Oh, I love that. Anyways, and I thought to myself so many things, and I said, this is a video. This is definitely a video we need to share with people. Because right now, I think in these times where we are stuck in our house, a lot of you are refusing to grasp the lesson. Yes, we're going to go ahead and create alternative routes. We're going to create parties. We're going to go out. We're going to ignore that we're in a pandemic and that people are actually dying, right? Go ahead, live your life. Live your life. But also with these times of not knowing who our next president is going to be. I have had so much thoughts about this. The division in America is not recent, people. America was never founded on morals, principles for all, okay? When you pay attention to the Constitution, when you pay attention to the Proclamation of Independence, when you're actually listening to the Pledge of Allegiance, is that all? Is it really pertaining to all? No, it isn't. And some of us are just not grasping the lesson. They're really not grasping the lesson because we are distracted with the politics of the situation. The divide right now has been instilled within the first conquest of these lands that were not ours. Okay? Ours meaning Americans that were not from here, native to here. And one of the things I feel is like we are not recognizing, we as a nation are not recognizing the privilege that we have. And when you don't recognize the privilege that you have in this country, because you're light-skinned, you're white, you're Caucasian, you are wealthy, you have a degree, you have status, you have this, you have that. There are minorities that don't have that privilege. But you yourself that do nothing about that. You do not exercise your voice. You do not exercise your vote. You are not part of a community where you can make changes. If you have that privilege, that's the privilege I'm speaking about. Wealth isn't just to accumulate things, and also knowledge isn't just to keep it up here. You got to share every single thing that you accumulate. But we are so distracted with accumulation of ourselves that we fail to recognize the lesson. The divide here is becoming bigger and bigger. I loathe to say this man's name, but Donald Trump really isn't the problem. He's a reflection of what was already in the lives of those Americans that are for him. Okay? But let's come back to our side, okay? Right here with the raza. How many of us discriminate within our own race? I know in my other counterpart over there in Mexico, they will discriminate you if you're darker. If you're not light-skinned. And I've had privilege. I know what privilege is because I am a little bit lighter than most Mexicans. But let me tell you a little story. I've worked retail all my life, part of it. And in some, I also did telemarketing in sales. They never saw my face, but they could hear my voice. And I would get certain conversations that would pop up in these privileged people. And I'm guessing because they've never had conversations with a Mexican, right? But I would tell them, my story, where I came from, how I was raised. We would go about conversations, and it could have been over the phone or just in front with a client, wealthy clients. And they would tell me that I did not sound Mexican. And I was like, what? What do you mean? Yeah, you don't sound like most Mexicans. And I was like, oh, this is a pat on my back with a, you're really Mexican? But I understood it was a low ball hit to me, but it's really funny. I would just say, okay, well, thank you for your $1,000 sale or something like that. But it's funny that we tend to not, we don't see beyond just our lens. And we don't get the lesson that you're going to be placed with different kinds of people around you because you need the lesson. It's not for you to exercise your privilege or to get distracted with your thoughts of whatever they may be. So right now, the divide that we're having is a lesson that we still have not moved forward. And we're not going to move forward because we have not changed. We have not changed the way that this country has been ran since it was established. I think it because I have privilege to live here. And speaking of that privilege that I do have, out of my 7 brothers and sisters, only 2 of us were born in America. That, to me, was a big privilege. Because that's how they bring you up. They think that, you live over here, you have privilege somehow. No, you still have to work hard. You still have to fucking pay taxes. You still have to do so many things in life, but you're still privileged, right? And yes, it might be a privilege because there may be opportunities, but I still need to grasp them. I still need to be the one responsible for getting them. And the reason why I was born here in America is because my father came here to America to work the lands here that the privileged did not want to work. Okay, remember that Bracero program? My dad became part of that program, and he was working here. And at that point in time, I was born here. And my mother tells me that maybe a few days after I was born, they took them back to Mexico. And that was it. We never came back. And my father was so upset at the treatment that he received in America. And he vowed he would never come back. And he never did. Years later, my mother and a few of my siblings receive their green cards. And this just happened a few months after my father passed away. And I'm thinking that must have been my father that eased that transition because it had been decades, 20, 25 decades since it happened. Well, anywho, we all have privilege. We all have dreams and aspirations, but we are very distracted with everything else outside of us except that lesson. So now I'm asking you today, what is your lesson out of all this nonsense that is going on, or through this pandemic, where a lot of us felt that, oh, my life is over? Well, maybe it's time to step back from those thoughts and say, what was your life about? Was it just your life? Were you really living your life? Or were you living a life of privilege, or a life of disregard? A life where maybe it wasn't for you. Maybe God's trying to teach you a lesson right now, and you're just so uptight. You are just so into your ego. You're holding it so tight that you want things to go back to how they were because you are not ready for the lesson. I think that's probably it. But anyway, search your soul, search your heart. What is your lesson right now? Don't be distracted by the thoughts and emotions and commotions that are happening right now. Let's get back in here and see, what is my lesson? Oh, okay. Bye, people.